Hello, it's been a minute. I never actually started this vlog. Crap. So I am over halfway through The Kingdom of Gods by N.K. Jemisin. So I should probably let you guys know what I think about it, huh? So basically with this one, it is the third novel in the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. And this one in particular is following Sia. So book one, we followed Yena, who kind of was like the big start really to understanding the world that was within the Inheritance trilogy with the gods and how that worked, and basically setting us up for understanding what a lot of the context of the other two books was going to be involved in. Book two, we followed Ori, who became involved with one of the gods that we find out was basically cast out due to things that had happened in book one. Now, this takes place basically 100 years after that, where we're following Sia, who is a character we have known about since book one. He is basically a childlike god. He is a fully grown individual, but essentially relies on his child format because of, I would basically assume to be some form of trauma in some way, which you kind of learn about in bits and pieces of the story. But this is mostly following him 100 years, like I said, after book two. And at this point in the book, I actually have just met the character that we learn about at the very end of book two that is involved with Ori and somebody else. And, well, basically, this is supposed to be spoilery, so I guess I'll just stop beating around the bush. So in book two, we found out that Ori and Tempest, who is like the father of all the gods, the man who was cast out by the other gods because of his nefarious, murderous, and incestuous ways, basically. He was cast out from the other gods and sent to live as a mortal. Well, godling more so, because he still had some abilities. But he and Ori basically do the thing, and Ori ends up pregnant. And we learned that at the very end of the Broken Kingdoms, that she is pregnant. Now, in book three, Sia, for one, at the very beginning, is involved with this set of twins who he becomes very fast friends with. He builds a trust with them, and then when they get older, Sia kind of becomes involved with the sister of the twins, and she uses his love and adoration for her against him. Because in this point in time, too, there is this all-out war between the Arameri, who are the mortals in this world, and the gods. The Arameri have basically been trying to bring down the gods for centuries, and that has not really changed, and there is an impending war coming on. So Sia obviously is very much upset with all of these things, and basically kind of like self-destructs in a lot of ways in this book, and it essentially leads him to then, at this point, about halfway through the book, with meeting up with the child that Ori had with Tempest, who he has a lot of hatred for because Tempest kind of screwed everything up for Sia. But anyway, he meets the child named Lee, who is the daughter of Ori and Tempest, and we learn that Lee has actually been with Tempest for a long time and is pretty much like a fan of her dad. Like, she understands that he used to be a really bad guy. We understand as the readers that based in how things had happened in the Broken Kingdoms, he has really kind of had a change of heart in a lot of ways, and he has definitely been learning his lesson that he was cast upon when he was sent out from the gods. But in this book so far, what we've learned is that while Sia is holding on to so much hatred and so much of a grudge for his father, at the same time he understands that people are able to change, and gods and mortals are more alike in a lot of ways than he has led to believe at this point in time. So Lee is really at this point kind of just, I think, going to be a big catalyst for him in terms of helping him understand that just because he's a god doesn't mean that the mortal things that he feels on a regular basis, things like lust and love and, you know, all these other things, just because they are considered mortal doesn't mean that he is in any way less godly, and also that just because he is feeling these more mortal things, it doesn't mean he's not a god. And I think that that's one of the things he struggles with throughout this, is that for one, he sees himself as godly. He is a god, and I think in a lot of ways though too, that plays into why he feels so much drawn to being a child form of that. He does not like the idea of growing up. He does not like the idea of responsibility. And I think that because of all the things he's gone through, he's felt that staying as more of a childlike God, where there is none of that responsibility, there is none of that need to like basically grow up in any way, it's what's really held him back in a lot of ways. So this is definitely going to be a book where we are going to see Sia, who from the very beginning of the series, we kind of have seen go from this very much childlike person to now in this book becoming more of an adult, where in the Broken Kingdoms, he definitely was that angsty, angry teenager kind of phase. This is, I think, a series more dedicated to Sia's growth and his essential, like, timeline of how he's able to forgive, not really fully his father, but how he's willing to understand that, you know, at some point you do have to grow up and you have to recognize that it is fine to view things from a childlike perspective and to have fun and, you know, and feel like you don't have as many responsibilities, but at the end of the day, especially as a god, you have to step up to the plate at some point. You can't expect everybody else to do things for you or expect everyone else to play nice or anything. At some point, you as an individual have to make decisions for yourself. You have to basically do things for yourself. You cannot rely on every other person in the world to do things for you. And also, you can't expect people to not screw you over when they have the chance, because everyone's going to screw everybody else over at some point if they have the ability to. That's just how people are. And I feel like this series is more dedicated to Sia really needing to understand all of that. Like, I feel that this book is the actual story of what is the Inheritance trilogy, and the first two books were more of the setup. The first book was the setup of understanding the gods. The Broken Kingdoms was the setup of essentially understanding who is going to be the individual that is going to get Sia to grow the fuck up, I think. I feel like that's kind of the way that the story has been built in terms of what I've understood. But who knows? I could be completely wrong. But so far, I'm liking this a lot. I really do like Sia as a character. I think that especially in this one, being able to see everything from his perspective, I've understood more of him as an individual, because we only got little bits and pieces of him in the 100,000 Kingdoms, and then in the Broken Kingdoms, he was really only there for a little bit of time. He wasn't really in that story much at all. And so this one, having actually like his entire story in this one, makes it much more appealing. And so far, this is my favorite of the three. I do think that this one is really good. I really did like the Broken Kingdoms a lot. I think Ori is my favorite character I have seen from this series as of yet. But I think that in terms of favorite overall story, the Broken Kingdoms is the one that is hitting the most for me. Like I said, I'm about halfway through it right now, so I'm going to basically be spending the rest of the day, I think, working on it, because I only have like a few hours of the audiobook left, and it is Saturday. It is my Friday, so I have the entire weekend to kind of just sit and relax, and I'm pretty excited for that. So I do, though, have to go film another vlog clip real quick for a different video, but once I finish that, I'm going to be getting into reading the rest of the Broken Kingdoms, and we'll kind of see what my final thoughts are. Hello, good morning. It is 11:06 on Sunday, and I just sat for the last almost 2 hours and finished The Kingdom of Gods, finally. This was my favorite book out of this entire series. 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely amazing. A really, really good way to, I think, finally end off this war that's gone on between the Arameri and the gods, and not necessarily have a fully happy ending, but very hopeful in a lot of ways. Sia, in this, we learn, essentially, because of the way that things happen with meeting the twins and the fact that they call on him, it kind of jeopardizes his like godliness, where like he becomes more mortalized. And what you learn throughout this is that he is actually actively aging. And one of the things that I loved about that aspect is that with his actively aging storyline is that essentially it forces him to really grow up, like I had said earlier. This is kind of a book where for Sia, we really see that he's forced to grow up. He's forced to take responsibility for the things he's done, and also he's able to recognize that even gods have human qualities, have mortal qualities. And just because you're a god, you are not exempt from those human qualities. You just have some basically like intense ability of control of elements and magic. But gods otherwise are still human in a sense. And they are flawed. They are not perfect in a lot of ways. And I feel that Sia, for the longest time, especially in this book, we learn that he kind of is thinking he is perfect, thinking he has done no wrong, but he's done a lot wrong. And especially when we kind of get to the biggest climax part of the story that involves a child that he did not realize was going to be a problem, like obviously he has his own seeds to sow with that. So I really enjoyed this. I'm very excited for the way that this live show is going to go, because Bree has been a part of the live shows for this series in particular, as this is her favorite series with N.K. Jemisin, and she's read it now. I think this is her 3rd time reading it. So I'm really excited, because with how the Broken Kingdoms discussion went, it was really awesome. It was really great to hear a lot of her thoughts on it and really talk about the nuances that there are in terms of talking about the Scriveners, for instance, which are characters that we kind of learn about more so in the Broken Kingdoms, and how they play more into this, and how that whole thing is like really important. So I'm really excited to hear what Bree has to say about this, and I really like the way that this ended. This is, like I said, my favorite book in this series. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was absolutely wonderful from beginning to end, and it did feel like it was a shorter book. Like, it's a 575-page book by itself, but for some reason it didn't feel like that. It felt like it was more of like a smaller fantasy book, which was a little odd, but I think that just kind of goes to show that NK can make things feel very quick, even if the book is almost 600 pages. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. Yeah, I'm excited for the live show, which is going to be on Saturday, July 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be having a live show discussing the Kingdom of Gods. So if you've read this, please feel free to come and join in on the live show. I know that a lot of people were really excited for this one, because this is now the 2nd full series that we have finished when it comes to NK's work. That's going to be it for this video. So thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys did enjoy this, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys.